As much as I love the idea of heading out into the wilderness and abandoning all technology, in reality, there's no chance I'd leave my smartphone behind. And while I have all manner of portable and fixed solar panels, if the weather isn't in your favour, as it frequently isn't here in the UK, they're not much use. But what about a camping stove that can also charge your phone? What? That's the concept behind Biolite's flagship product, featuring a patented thermoelectric generation technology, now in its second iteration and having received a slight power bump to the battery, hence the plus bit of the name. But how does the Biolite Campstove 2 Plus perform? Does it even really work? Can you actually charge a smartphone from this? Let's find out in today's MakeUseOf.com review. I'm James Bruce. Let's get a bit wild. So what's in the box? Deceptively heavy at 1.66 kilograms or 3.66 pounds, the Campstove 2 Plus box is neatly packaged with the power module found inside the stove. Also in the box, you'll find a pack of firelighters, a USB flexible light, and a micro USB charging cable for the battery should you need it. There's also 2 nylon bags to keep the camp stove in when not in use and having fully cooled down. And it all packs down to about 5.8 inches in total. If you buy the official kettle, the whole thing will then also fit inside of that. Now, you should charge this orange battery unit before first use just to condition the battery, but after that you can use the heat of the fire to keep it topped up. Now, not included but available separately are a range of accessories such as the kettle for boiling water, the grill for cooking, and there's also some sort of coffee pot. The burn chamber part of the Campstove 2 Plus is pretty compact at around 4 inches diameter and 7 inches deep, with a scalloped pot stand on top. And that's designed to work with a range of accessories from Biolite, but honestly any smaller pan or pot would also work fine, so you don't need to buy new accessories. You should, however, temper your expectations in terms of the fire size that you'll be producing, of course. In the side, or what you can't see here because the battery's in there, is a large hole into which the thermoelectric spout of the battery unit inserts. Now, this is the bit that transforms some of the heat energy from the fire into power for the battery. Then around the entire body of the camp stove is a honeycomb heat mesh, which protects you from the inner burn chamber and helps to keep everything inside. On the base of the Campstove 2 Plus are 3 legs, which neatly fold out to provide stability. And that lifts it up approximately 4 centimeters from off the ground and locks in the power module. The orange bit of the camp stove is where all the fun happens. This houses a battery, which is securely protected from the heat of the stove because obviously normally you wouldn't put a battery anywhere near a fire. There's also a USB-A port on the side, and that's to connect the included flexible light or your own phone charger, as well as a micro USB port underneath to charge the internal battery, both of which have a rubber cover. Now, the knobbly metal part is what contains the thermoelectric energy generation technology, which extends out into the flames and captures some of that waste heat. Meanwhile, an internal fan injects air into the middle of the stove, reducing smoke, not entirely eliminating it, and ensuring a good burn. Simply hold down the power button to activate or deactivate the fan, and then press once to turn it up, so we can put it up to full level here if you like. Oh, that's down to 1. And that's on full. And that'll make everything burn a bit quicker and help you to get started faster. Now, there are 3 LED indicators on the front of the unit. The first shows the fire power, which will activate whenever it's recovering heat energy and basically tells you how hot your fire is. The second shows the current fan level, which you can actually hear anyway. You don't need an LED for that. While the third one shows the battery remaining. So you can either use the single USB port here for the included lamp for a bit of bedtime reading or to help you cook, or you can have it charge your phone, but not both. The light is surprisingly bright, in complete darkness anyway, but the only thing I don't like about it is that it's actually a touch-based control. I kept brushing my hand on it, which would turn off the light. I should note, however, that the output is quite limited. It's about 3 or 4 watts, so it's not going to charge your phone while you cook dinner, at least not fully. And because of the relatively small burn chamber, you won't be able to leave the stove on all night. It would burn out after about half an hour at most. Your average smartphone has anywhere from 10 to 15 watt hours of battery capacity, meaning you would need to leave this plugged in about 3 or 4 hours to charge up fully. Now, it'll keep you topped up at best and provide something in an emergency. After all, you're always going to be able to find some small brush or something to be burnt in this, and it's a very efficient use of fuel. As long as you kept feeding the fire, potentially you could get a full charge, but it's certainly not a case of start a little fire for half an hour and get a full phone charge from it. You should be more realistic. Still, when you have no other source of power at all, that's a lifesaver right there. And it's also worth mentioning that because this unit has a battery in it, you don't actually need the fire to charge a phone or otherwise. You can take the orange bit off, take it to bed, charge your phone overnight. But of course, then it'll need to use more of the power the next time you start a fire to recharge the battery. So the net result of how much power you generate isn't going to change. So how is it in use? The first use we tried this, I sent my son off to gather some sticks, and then we lit up a fire starter and whacked the fan on. In no time at all, we had a blazing fire like it is now.
Hey.
Initially, I'll use a high fan setting to get the flames going. Then once the flames were lapping the top, I cut it down to the minimum. One of the biggest things that surprised me about the Campstove 2 Plus was how quickly you can get a fire going. I would say within a minute or two, it was fully flaming, albeit not a high heat yet because there was no hot core underneath. But it was burning well, all thanks to the enclosed design and the controlled all-around air injection from the fan. If you struggle to get campfires going, you're going to really love this. And especially where we're located here in the valley, the wind can sometimes be really immense and it makes outdoor fires quite difficult to get started. With this, you just get a fire starter going, drop it in, and then load it up with some material and it's done. No fussing around. Now, Biolite states that boiling water under ideal conditions will take about 5 minutes for 1 litre. In real-world usage, you're probably unlikely to get it that hot, depending on what you're burning, so best to allow 10 minutes for 1 litre. I did also pick up the official Biolite kettle to test this and managed to go from a starting fire with only about 2 power level, very low, a very weak fire, and boiled 1.5 litres in around 15-20 minutes. That's higher than they suggest, of course, but it's the maximum it'll hold. I'll also note that I had to refuel after 10 minutes, so actually it would have been quicker if I had kept a closer eye on it. It's quite hard to judge with a pot on top because you have to peer through the sides and see if there's any action in there still. And I should also note that we were burning a lot of softwoods, so it's not the most intense fire by any means. It hovered around the 3 to 4 mark eventually, but I think that's reasonable. You could certainly do 1 or 2 cups of coffee very quickly. You don't have to burn sticks. It can also burn pellets, pine cones, and any renewable biomass, which is awesome. Is it completely smokeless? Not really, but it depends on obviously what you're burning. So as you can tell, it's not really smokeless. Thing is, it's been raining here. Literally everything I could find is wet, so I just have to do the best with what I've got. Of course, that's mostly the steam burning off, but if you whack the fan onto full, it certainly reduces that to a minimum and speeds up the process of burning that steam off before it can actually burn the material. But it doesn't really like damp wood. Like any fire, you're going to get some smoky steam coming off when you try to burn that. It's a fair bit of heat that comes off directly at the top, and we were able to toast our marshmallows in no time at all. No fuss at all about finding a sort of sweet spot. It's all concentrated at the top beautifully. Very little heat comes off the sides. It's all very much directed upwards, which means that even for just one person, this is very much for cooking only. It was about 7 degrees Celsius outside when we did this, and short of warming your hands directly on top, it didn't really help to warm us up at all. So it's not a replacement for a full campfire. It's very much a small thing to cook on only, and of course, charge your smartphone. For longer cooking sessions, the ash will build up inside the burn chamber and there's nowhere to sort of let it go. For short sessions, just boiling a bit of water or a quick fry up, it's so efficient and clean and easy to use. But for long cooking, like a slow cooked rabbit stew or something, I think you would start to struggle. I did find that it cooled down really quickly, at least enough to fold in the one leg that locks the battery, so I could remove that part quickly and bring it inside to avoid the dew getting on it, while the main stove I left outside just to burn down the embers. So, is the Biolite Campstove 2 a worthy investment for your outdoor activities? While the compact size and relatively small fire can be a potential downside in terms of giving off not a lot of heat, it does also have some positives too. A campfire to cook on can be a lot of faff. Sometimes it'll take ages to get something going to the point it can actually be cooked on. With this, you can start boiling water or cooking almost immediately because of the compact size. It doesn't take long to fill the burn chamber with biomass. Sure, you might need to refill after 10 minutes, but in the meantime, you've been cooking while the other camper is still making their fire. Keeping the flame contained within this chamber makes it incredibly efficient. For campers, the convenience and simplicity is a winner. The only downside is the weight. The stove and power module in total weigh about 2 pounds or just under a kilogram, which is heavier than most wooden burning camp stoves, but I think the sheer convenience of being able to charge your phone at the same time means you won't also have to carry a portable battery. You've got one here. It doesn't burn as hot or as reliably as a gas canister stove, but it's a real fire, and you're always going to be able to find renewable biomass to burn, assuming it's allowed wherever it is that you are. So that's easily a winner in my book, and gas is, frankly, cheating. Even if, like me, you're not a fan of wild camping per se, I think preppers, foragers, self-sufficient types will appreciate the Biolite Campstove 2 Plus. It definitely plays an important role in your emergency, SHTF, or just general resilience planning. So thanks to Biolite for sending this over for review, and I do hope to check out the larger version of this soon that can replace an entire campfire rather than just a small stove. And if you haven't already watched my review of the Biolite emergency kit for power and lighting, it's well worth checking that out too. Do hit me up in the comments if you have any questions about the Campstove 2 Plus, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more from myself, James Bruce, and the rest of my reviews team over at makeuseof.com. Until next time, stay safe.